I'm going to give you a brief overview of Imagine Language, the Language and Literacy Program. So when you first sign into your Imagine Learning account, you'll always see your teacher dashboard initially. And so you'll see that it has the usage for your students, growth and progress. So the usage is just showing you average usage for the past week, but you can always change it by clicking that arrow. And then you can click the drop down here beside time period and choose if you want it to be more up to date, like this week, last week, or you can set your own date ranges if you click on custom. The section in the middle called growth. When the students first sign into Imagine Learning, the reading program, they are going to have to take a benchmark test. With the benchmark test, of course, they may have things on it that they don't know. And so the program is going to place them on the track that they need to be on. And throughout the program, they are going to be continually assessed with short little assessments, and that'll help the program to change their pathway as needed. So if you're interested in seeing how they did on the benchmark test, you could come into the growth section here. Something else I want to point out on this teacher dashboard page, if you scroll down a little bit on the right-hand side, there's also a section called Portfolio, and so when your kids make their audio recordings or if they're typing something, this is where you would come to see those written responses or typed up responses and listen to the audio recordings as well. So you could just click here and all of your students are listed. One other thing that I'll point out on the dashboard, your Manage Students section, and most of you already know about this. This is where you can come if you want to add additional kids, if you need to change your students' language, or if you need to adjust the session times, or even if you want to change their passwords. So this is where you would come to do those things. And then if you scroll down, all of your kids are listed here, and it's showing you the usage. This is based on last week, on their usage based on last week, and then the goal. So our goal as far as minutes go, our school's goal is 100 minutes. So that's why you're seeing those percentages here. Like, so this student reached 65% of their goal. They were almost there. And if you click on a student's name, you just get more information. So if I click on that first student's name, it's going to give me a lot more information. For instance, I can see how many activities he completed today, how many books they read, and if I scroll down more, I can just see if they passed it, if they completed it. And if you want to really drill down to see what the students worked on, if you can't tell what it was, and if you want to see what the activity was like, you can scroll up a little bit, and right to the right of achievements, that arrow, if you click on that arrow, it automatically stays on achievements, but if you scroll up to the top of that page, if you click progress by lesson, this has a breakdown of everything they were doing. So here it's telling you that there are 8 literacy lessons, and this student has completed 2 out of the 8. Here it shows you where they are as far as with their vocabulary. They're in the beginning academic stages. And then if I click on the number 1 there, then it gives me the breakdown of the lesson. So I think this is their lesson 1. And so if you wanted to see what the lesson was, this is a way for you to see it if you ever were curious about what they were focusing on during that lesson. So let me come out of there, and I'm going to go back to the dashboard for a second. Okay, so something else we'll look at. On the right-hand side, you'll notice this little link for Imagine Learning University. If you go to it from your dashboard page, then you just go right into it. It already has you signed in. If you ever do a Google search for it, then you'll just sign in with the same thing you used to get into Imagine Learning. And they do have some good webinars in there, so if you ever wanted to learn about some other things, some more in-depth topics, you could probably find that in Imagine Learning University. All right, the last few things that we'll focus on are some of the things that go across this top banner. So teacher resources, if you click on that, this section has a ton of printable items. You could also download them. Most of them are PDF documents, so you could always download the PDF, and you could upload it to your Google Classroom or upload it to your eClass page. Some of the printable items are like vocabulary cards, worksheets, short books. So you can just go through and click on the different categories here, and it'll just bring up what they have. I'll just click on the first one. And so here, if I go to letter practice, these are little videos, and you could play these whole group or even share your screen. But then there's also a lot of other activities that are PDFs. And so here, if I go to printouts, it's showing me the different things that I can print. And here are some flashcards. And so they have this for all different levels. But right now I'm under a kindergarten page, so most of the things that you're saying or seeing are more so geared towards kindergarten. So just know that in your teacher resources area, you can print out a lot of good documents. Like I said, vocabulary cards, short books, worksheets, and you could always download them if you don't want to print them. So that's teacher resources. I'm going to skip Activity Explorer for a second and come back to it. Action areas at the top. This is a place where you can find what your students are struggling with, and it'll even break it down and tell you the students who are struggling with that particular skill. If it's your first time coming into action areas, it'll give you a quick little tutorial of like 3 slides that just kind of take you through some of the different parts of this page. So here I can see that one student needs intervention. If I click the plus sign, it's going to tell me who that student is, and I can pull them in a group, or if there's 4 students here, you can pull them in a group and do some type of interventions with them. They also give you some suggested interventions to use with them, so you don't have to search for anything. It's here. And these are videos, and like I said, you could launch this and either share your screen, or you could do a whole group activity. If everybody needs it, it's up to you how you want to use it. Okay, and our last section that we're going to look at is the Activity Explorer section. This is something that Allegra mentioned to us, I believe it was last year. So this is a section that contains playlists. So if you wanted to push out some activities to your kids, this is the way that you would do it. So there's just a few things to keep in mind if you're going to use this area. So I'm going to click on Activity Explorer, and we'll get to playlists through the Activity Explorer option here. Okay, so here it loads up with different items, or you can search for something. So let's say I wanted to search for plants. If that's something that I'm working on, I could just search for it. Or if I wanted to assign my students some reading comprehension skills, I could do it from here. So I'm going to just search for plants. And before I click the search button, you'll see that I've already made a playlist. And to make a playlist, all I did was hit the plus sign, and I called it September 2020. Of course, you could call yours whatever you like. I'll call this one Plants 2020. So a few things about the playlist before I click the search button. So the playlists are going to interrupt the student's natural path. So remember, this is a program that designs the kids' path based on how they're doing and based on how they're doing on those short assessments. So if I assign kids this Plants playlist, if they were supposed to work on phonological awareness next, they're not. They're going to see plants. So whenever they're done with their current lesson, the next thing they're going to get to is the playlist that I have assigned them. So just be mindful about that. So even though it counts toward their usage, there's not real data that's collected. So you also can only assign them one playlist at a time. And each playlist can hold 12 activities. But just remember that it does interrupt their path. So you may not want to assign them like a really long playlist. Otherwise, they're not going to get back to their Imagine Learning items for quite some time. So let me go ahead and search for plants. And so here I can see all the different items. And it's telling me right here that most of these are for grade 2. Anytime you see the titles highlighted here, and in blue, you can always click on it, and it's going to play the activity the way that the kids are going to see it. So if I wanted to preview this, and I know it's 2 minutes, I could click on the link, and it's loading up as it would for a student. And then I could preview it to see if I really wanted to add it to the playlist. And then you can also see what it is. So this is practice, this is assessment. So maybe I just want them to have one practice and one assessment. And if that's the case, I would come over to my plus sign on the right side. And these are the two playlists that I have. And I could add it to plants. And it's telling me that it was successfully added to the plants playlist. So the last step is to actually assign students to the playlist. So now I have one, but there are no kids in it. So I'm going to click on my playlist, and then here are the two that I currently have. And once again, you can see that no students have been assigned to either playlist. So I'm going to click on it here. And so on the top right, you have the option to assign and remove students from the playlist. So when I click the plus sign for assign, all of my students will come up. And I just clicked right in the box, but I can choose what students I want to have this playlist assigned to. And then I would just go to save, and I'm not going to save it, but I would hit save if I'm ready to assign it. The other thing to remember about playlists, once you have assigned it to a student, you can't edit it. So even if none of the kids have started on it, if you have assigned them to the playlist, you won't be able to edit it once any of your students have been assigned to it. So just make sure before you assign it, you have all of your activities in there and it's the way that you want it to be. If you accidentally assign a student to two different playlists, like if I assign them to the plants and the one that said September 2020, whichever one I assigned them to last would be the one that they actually do. Because remember, you can only assign them to one playlist at a time. So I'm just going to go back to the home page. And that's pretty much it. And if you have questions, feel free to let me know or let Ms. Erstad or Ms. Hellman know, and we'll make sure that we can help you and answer any questions you might have.